The next topic we're covering is cover crops, and cover crops are very important for a number of reasons. I would suggest primarily because they help keep the something growing on the soil as much as possible. The biological system in the soil requires sugar from photosynthesis to feed it. The symbiotic relationship that goes on in the soil is one where the plant, through photosynthesis in the leaf, makes sugars and exudes many of those sugars out through the roots to the soil life as food that the soil life then uses to grow, reproduce, and go and access the minerals that it is designed to access. It will then take those minerals, feed them back to the plant. The plant uses them to grow, makes more sugar, feed that sugar back down into the root zone. And when you have green plants growing in the soil, you have this process going, and so you basically are maintaining a large level of life in the soil active when you've got things growing on it. When you have bare soil for extended periods of time, if you take out your crops in the fall and don't put in a cover crop, bare or fallow, and keep the soil bare for an extended period of time, these are things that effectively dramatically inhibit the biological system. And so cover crops serve a very valuable purpose in keeping the life going and operating at a high level when your crops are not growing. So there's various different types of cover crops. There's the oats and the rye, there's vetch, there's peas, there's tillage forage radishes, there's beets, there's all sorts of different crops you can use. I'd like to just sort of break them down into two basic camps at this point. One would be the ones that winter kill, and the other ones are the ones that don't. In this climate here in Massachusetts, two good examples of that are oats and rye. So oats, if planted after a crop, will die in the winter, and rye will grow until it gets too cold to grow anymore, and sit and wait until spring and then start growing again. So what I like to suggest is that farmers, gardeners plan their dying off winter kill cover crops in areas where they're planning on putting in spring crops. Crops like carrots, beets, the brassicas, onions, peas, the things that go in fairly early in the season would be the ones where would be areas where it would be good to grow oats and other winter killing type cover crops. And if you do that, what you have, if you've got a bed system or you've got a growing area, you've got the cover crop present and having died off, and you can go in there very lightly until minimally to integrate the cover crop if you need to prepare a planting bed, or you could just make rows right into that dead cover crop material, and that would serve as a mulch and inhibit weed germination, etc. So that would be a strategy for the early crops. And for the later crops, the things like the cucurbit family, the solanaceous family, cucumbers, squash, tomatoes, peppers, eggplants, a lot of those warm weather crops are crops where I would plant a rye type cover crop, winter rye type cover crop. And those cover crops, if they're planted in the fall, they slow down in the winter, they start up again in the spring, and there's this period called the milk stage, which is after the plant has flowered before the seed is viable. It's about a week or 10-day period. It's called the milk stage, where if you cut that rye at that point in its plant's life, after it's decided to go to seed, you can effectively harvest the straw as mulch, or you can just knock it down. All you have to do is bend or crimp the stem to kill the plant, and you can have had growing the entire spring a vigorous, vital plant which is building lots of activity and energy and nutrition and life in the soil, and plant your crops, your tomatoes, your squash, your peppers, melons, etc. right into that area. You can kill the plant simply by cutting it after it's chosen to go to seed, and you've basically continuously maintained biological activity in that soil through the entire growing season. So cover crops are a very valuable tool to use to maintain the biological system at a high level, and should be considered by those who are not using them currently.